Why do I have a podcast for my email marketing agency that literally only gets like 10 views an episode? When I put it like that, I don't actually know. I have a podcast for 3 very specific reasons, and in this video, I'm gonna run through what those reasons are and how they help my business in the long run. So, without any further ado, I know for you who've been watching this channel for quite a while, I try and get straight to the point. So, reason number 1 is it builds social proof. When I get into sales calls with potential clients, or I'm just pitching my services to other service providers, or just talking about my business, when I say that I have a podcast that focuses on my specific space consistently, it always seems to flip a switch in those people's minds that I'm more professional, right? They are more comfortable with interacting with me from a business perspective or as a potential client based on the fact that I am creating content that's hours long talking to other professionals only about the thing that they need help with. That in the mind of a customer is huge. And I think it's twofold. 1, it shows that you know what you're talking about. And number 2, it shows that you're willing to put yourself out there in a way that a scam artist definitely wouldn't. Trust is so big in the SMMA space. And if you can build that trust in any way, it's gonna pay huge dividends. The podcast does that. So number 1 is it helps build social proof. Number 2 is it introduces me with a huge range of people. Now, my podcast is not really just me speaking stream of consciousness. My podcast is focused on talking to other email marketers about email marketing. And occasionally, I will talk to other marketers about marketing in general. Now, what this does is it introduces me to other people in the space and allows me to network and make connections. And I follow up with any of those connections and the guests that I have on the podcast with a LinkedIn connection request. And then my LinkedIn content schedule kind of just picks up the ball from there. I post 3 times on LinkedIn, and that content just kind of keeps the other people informed about what I'm doing. And eventually that turns into leads. So the podcast itself is a huge networking opportunity to meet other people. Now, if I were to fully take advantage of it, right? If I were to redo my podcast, and to be honest, this is what I think I should be doing, is I would pivot my podcast away from talking to other people who sell the exact same service as me and pitch it as a conversation with people who sell services adjacent to me. And what I could do with that is form strategic partnerships with those people. So here's what I mean. I sell email marketing, right? And my podcast focuses on email marketing because it's talking to people who are looking for email marketing services. That was the goal in my mind. When someone needs to learn about email marketing, they will go to my podcast. Now, occasionally that's going to be a agency service provider, but more often than not, it's going to be a business owner who's learning a little bit more about email marketing. They'll come across me, boom, it'll turn into a client. What I should have done is pitched it to other people who do marketing stuff that isn't identical to mine. For example, marketing for food and beverage brands, right? And I focus on the email marketing side of food and beverage marketing, and I get guests on who focus on Facebook ad or Meta ad food and beverage marketing, or Google ad food and beverage marketing. And what that does is it opens up the conversation a lot wider to a bunch more people, and it also allows me to talk to somebody who's probably servicing clients really similar to me, who doesn't sell a service that is identical to mine. And what that does is it opens up a strategic partnership. They can refer me, I can refer them, vice versa. You just grow your network, and it opens a massive door. And the great thing is, it opens a door in a way that allows you to not pitch, but pitch while doing it in a very educational sense. I hope that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is, it opens a door in a way that you can do everything that you would do in a normal pitch. You get to talk about what you do, the benefits that people get from working with you, but do it in a way that when someone's listening to it, they actually feel like they're having a genuine conversation, and they are, and they're getting a genuine connection from the use of a podcast interview. So that's number 2. Number 3, the final one, is it's a branding exercise. Now, I know this is kind of similar to the first one, but believe it or not, the podcast itself, sometimes it's not actually for the long form content. More often than not, it's for the clips that you get from the podcast. Now, what I do, and what I should be doing more of, is I record these episodes and then I chop them up into small clips. Those small clips go onto TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, anywhere that I can get reach, and I just push those out on all those channels. And that essentially multiplies the amount of video content I'm doing at scale. Recording videos like these, like this one right here, it takes a bit of time. It's not fun. No, I'm kidding. I do enjoy recording these, but the mental preparation that it takes me to get into the headspace to do this, it's exhausting. But, right, with the podcast, I'm talking to someone and we're getting nuggets of gold, and we can chop that up, put it out on different platforms, and boom, you get 7 pieces of content with a 1-hour video that's been recorded. Now, obviously, you have to have a video editor, or you can use some AI software to cut up the podcast. It's not as good when you're using the AI software, but that is the third benefit, right? It's a branding exercise. You're putting out content on a short form perspective, and you're also putting out long form from like a YouTube and a Spotify perspective when you have the full video posted up. So I highly recommend you look at setting up a podcast if you have a marketing agency. Even if you don't think it's going to get much reach, that's not the point. The real point is to introduce yourself to other people in that space, increase your branding, and build social proof. The podcast itself, like the success of the podcast, in our case, more often than not, shouldn't be measured by how many listeners you have. It should be measured by the side effects that having a podcast actually has, which is, once again, social proof, branding exercise, and making connections. Super, super useful. I don't know how many times I've tried introducing myself to people just to be like, hey, I'd love to have a chat. They're busy, they don't have time. But then when you say, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast, they see it as a win for them because they're getting reach and they're getting engagement or awareness for their business. They're so much more likely to say yes to that because that's free media for them. But when they see it as, hey, I'd love to have you on my podcast just to help me out, or rather, hey, I'd love to have you on a call just so we can chat. It's not going to be recorded, it's just one-on-one. They're like, dude, I don't have time for that. If someone hit me up to be on their podcast, 100% I'd do it. It's really, really worthwhile, and I've seen quite a few benefits just from having 5 episodes out so far. I got to interview a guy who has a massive agency who I've been recording. I got to interview a guy who has a massive agency who I've been watching for years now, and that was awesome. I never would have been able to talk to him without the podcast backing me. So I do it, I get benefit. So I highly recommend you do that. Any questions, let me know. Smack them down in the comment section down below. Like, subscribe, you know the deal. New videos whenever I can be bothered at this point, but I post up quite frequently. Yeah, any questions, let me know, guys. Thanks.